I'm Dan. I'm a co-founder of Let's Get Inclusive, an initiative which aims to support women in tech, connecting them to senior level industry mentors. Today I'm speaking with Beckie Taylor. Beckie's the CEO, founder of Reframe Women in Tech and of Tech Returners. So Beckie, thanks for joining us. Would you like to introduce a bit more about yourself and what it is that you do?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for having me here today. So, as you mentioned, I am CEO and co-founder of an organisation called Tech Returners, which supports people returning to tech after a career break. They're experienced software engineers and had career breaks for many different reasons, and we support them by upskilling and provide career and mindset to help them transition back into the industry. And also, you mentioned Reframe Women in Tech, which is a non-for-profit community conference.
Brilliant. And I know that you've been running Tech Returners since 2017. What was it that first inspired you to get involved in that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it was very much a personal experience that led to the sort of setup of Tech Returners. So my background is HR people and talent. So previous to setting up Tech Returners, I was HR director for a leading SaaS-based technology business based here in Manchester. And just over 10 years ago, was HR director, and I fell pregnant with my first child, Ethan, who's just turned 10, and found myself not only as a minority as a woman in tech, but then became a minority as a parent in tech. And I think in terms of that transition myself, I really sort of experienced the things such as lack of confidence. Sort of the tech industry moves so quickly, so my skill set became, not as up to date as it would have even just a short time career break. So when I came back into my position at the organisation I was with, I started to think about it. If I was experiencing this, how many other women are out there experiencing the same? So it led me to co-found a community meetup group called Women in Tech North, and you can find us on meetup.com. And we've sort of scaled that community naturally for the past nearly coming up to 6 years now. And we're now proud to say we're the third largest women in tech community globally. And it was through sort of the work within the community, it became more and more apparent the lack of support for people returning to tech after a career break. So there's amazing initiatives back then and still is around supporting people that, coming out of college, coming out of universities, apprenticeships, graduates. But there was nothing really supporting people returning. And sort of pair that with the gender pay gap and also the statistic out there that 56% of women leave their careers at mid-senior level, it started to say the same old narrative that if we sort of fill the pipeline up, then if we don't retain the talent, we'll just create a leaky bucket effect, and sort of my terminology for that. So back in 2017, James, my co-founder and CTO, came up with the idea around actually exploring whether there was an opportunity to support people returning to tech after a career break. So it started off with very much a pilot initiative, just 2 pilot cohorts, and we put a couple of social media posts out, didn't really know in terms of what interest, and we were inundated with responses. So the first one was 100% women, and then the second one was 90%. And with all the whole essence around supporting people with upskilling and forming that community. And one of the questions I always asked them was, why us? Because there's lots of amazing boot camps, university courses, but why us? And it was purely the fact that the people felt that empathy with people that had been through a similar situation and formed that sort of bond, friendships and, relationships that then continued and flourished as they went back into the industry. So once we'd done the successful pilot sort of programs, we sort of then wanted to commercialize it, but remaining true to our core value of accessibility, and that you'll see that theme coming up in terms of a lot of things I talk about. So we started to form partnerships with organisations that enabled us to deliver the training and upskilling for free, and they then had a wealth of talent that they could recruit out of and then transition to their organisations. So since then we've scaled across the whole of the UK and supported more than 250 people back into careers in technology, which has been a huge success and beyond any expectation that I had back in 2017.
Brilliant. And generally within tech at the moment, what do you see as the main challenges that for either keeping women out of the industry or, like you say, causing people to leave kind of mid-career?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think the barriers remain at different points in terms of a person's career journey. So we've still got those barriers to entry in terms of for people without experience. How do they actually get into technology and the awareness of careers in technology? So I think a lot needs to be done around the education level, so creating awareness that there's more to careers in tech than just coding. There's obviously non-technical roles as well, and around that design element, UX designing, etc. There's creative aspects of it, so a lot of awareness. Then I think, like I was talking about, the retention of women, so having the ability to progress. So is there enough being done within organisations that help and develop them, like you talked about the amazing work that you're doing around mentor, and I think that's just such a key point around in terms of women's development within technology, and role models. You can't be what you can't see, so we really need to emphasize and get more role models out there in the community, like what we're doing at Reframe, to make sure people can see that the amazing successes and people's journeys that they can really relate to as well.
And what level of role do you think initiatives like Let's Get Inclusive, like Reframe, can play in kind of tackling those type of challenges?
I think all roles. We don't really track our data. It's something that we're it's very important to us at Reframe. So we only really look in terms of from a gender diversity split around our sort of conferences. But what we get from feedback from our partners is that people are coming to the community at all different levels. People that have got an interest in technology and might know someone, so coming to see what opportunities there is. People that might be looking for new opportunities and looking to progress their career, women at leadership levels and looking, how they can support and pay it forward back into the community. So I think it really sort of spans across all different elements of roles within the industry.
And since you were coming through within the tech industry and, since you started Tech Returners around 2017, have you noticed any kind of changes, positive or negative, around diversity and inclusion within the industry?
I think one of the most sort of poignant points was the pandemic was horrendous, absolutely horrendous for a lot of people. Personally, myself, I lost my father during that time period as well. However, I think I'm all about reframing, hence why Reframe's called Reframe. And one thing that we saw was people's understanding of career breaks a lot more. So I think if returners and the returner concept has only been around probably the past 5 years, and there's a lot more education needs to be done around people's perception of what a returner is. A lot of people think that they have got no experience, or they haven't been doing anything for that period of time, which couldn't be further from the truth. But I think when we went through the pandemic, and unfortunately there was a lot of people that unfortunately made redundant, that I think people started to understand what actually a career break could be. And I'm sure we all remember seeing on LinkedIn about people doing extra courses, reading, extra personal development. And that whole element adds to the wealth of transferable skills for a person. So take that into a returner's perspective. I think it's shone the light of actually, what value can returners actually add to the organisation. Topped off with the new way of working now. Back and when I started my career in HR, I was only talking about this the other day, flexible working was something that we used to put on as a benefit on our careers website. Everybody had flexible working, and that was something, a big pull in terms of recruitment. But now it's very much the norm, and I think it's had the ability then for more people, especially women, to come back into the sector, because you don't need to be in an office 9 to 5 anymore. You've got that flexibility of being able to do the school run or doing the caring responsibilities, as well as coming back and developing your career as well.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the changes that I've noticed in my role within tech recruitment is around a more kind of women entering the industry, either through slightly different avenues, through like coding boot camps. I think have made made a big impact in that kind of area, but I think there is still a lack of women at leadership type levels within tech. Do you think, is that just kind of a matter of time until that balances out, or do you think, what more kind of needs to be done to be able to get more women into those kind of roles?
Yeah, so back in 2018, I actually did a piece of research about that topic, and actually came across a very staggering statistic that's actually only 5% of women in leadership roles in the tech industry across the whole of the UK.
Wow.
And what was more staggering was, apart from your traditional like management courses, which again do have their place, there wasn't that much support. I'm talking, a number of years ago, around, women progressing. So I think something that I sort of wanted to explore and looked upon my own sort of development journey in that way. And I built a program called the Confidence Collective, where we take people through a 4-month journey around understanding themselves, overcoming imposter syndrome and confidence, and in terms of how to manage that with effective tools, how to raise their sort of profile internally and externally, and how to develop that with leadership skills. And I'm talking about real leadership skills within that. And I've taken probably about 160 now women through that, in Manchester and London. And just having more presence around more women talking about their leadership. And we form now a community that they now support each other. They've sort of help in terms of, because when you're being a woman in a very male-dominated environment and you don't have any support network, that is when you're likely to fall out the industry. Mm-hmm. But I think what we're trying to create, and probably similar to your mentoring, is actually forming allies that they can go and support and get support from, just to have a chat to. And I think that's all about how we can retain more women and see them progress. And also, like I said before, about seeing women that can, progress and maybe have family and caring responsibilities. And it's not about having to work a 60-hour working week because you're in a leadership position. We need to bust that myth. And I talk about my own experience about having 2 young children. You won't never see me working a 60-hour week, because that's just impossible with all the extracurricular activities I've got with my 2. So I think it's, again, that visibility and having that support community network for women as well.
Brilliant. And from the perspective of a company that might be looking to make themselves more inclusive, more supportive of, female employees, what would you say are the kind of key starting points that they can, easily address to make a difference?
I think look at your own organisation. I think I've done a number of workshops with organisations around this, and don't just do it as a tick box exercise, or diversity, inclusion, equality is on the radar, so we need to do something. I always think about, well, look at from your own organisation's perspective, where are you now, and be really open and honest about that, around warts and all, where is your current situation. And what is your why? What are you looking to achieve? What's your purpose about where you want to get to? And again, that should be unique to your own organisation, not what it says on LinkedIn or what society says. You need your own purpose for doing it. And then build a very visible roadmap in terms of key milestones, and be very transparent around that. So I would say, if I was going interviewing with an organisation and I was asking about their diversity and inclusion equality initiatives, and I saw something very honest and transparent around, well, this is where we're up to, but these are the key things that we're working on. Well, why wouldn't I want to join that and be part of that sort of movement of where they want to get to? I think too often companies sort of have these hugely ambitious goals, which probably aren't very realistic. And then when you get into that organisation, it's not really aligning to what has actually been promised. So set realistic expectations, and then you can move on from that. Embrace the journey rather than just the end goal.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to say that really echoes what I've heard from candidates that we've represented as well. Companies that may not be there yet, but are clearly kind of making movements towards it. The feedback on that has been positive, and people don't seem to be, too alarmed if it's not, say, a 50-50% balance between men and women, which maybe isn't.
And that's not
feasible.
Realistic at the moment, is it? We hope to obviously work towards and to get there, but we all know that's not realistic. Mm-hmm. So any organisation that it isn't being realistic, people are going to see straight through that. Mm-hmm. So I think, like I said, I would be rather part of that journey and help and contribute to that, and actually have an impact in that as well.
What kind of advice would you give potentially for women that are maybe considering a career in technology, or those that are kind of just finding the way in the industry and maybe kind of considering whether they want to continue, whether they want to kind of look elsewhere?
I think from a Manchester perspective, I think we have such an amazing community, so many different community meetups, initiatives that you can get involved in. So be curious, go out and sort of experience and meet people. I know it can be quite daunting. So I always say we have people reaching out to women in tech north. So I'm really interested in coming along, but I'm a bit nervous, I've never been to a meetup before. And we will put sort of things in place where, someone will meet that person outside the front door, because I know how daunting it is for myself sometimes just to walk through that door. We do similar things with Reframe. We create a WhatsApp group for anybody who's coming on their own, so they can maybe like communicate in the WhatsApp group before, or meet people at the door so that they know somebody, a familiar face, to feel like part of the community and easier to sort that transition. So I think communities are great. Reach out to schemes like, you've talked about mentoring schemes, find somebody that's going through a similar, or has been on a similar journey to you, and be curious around what you can learn. Understand that it's not just all coding roles, there's lots of different roles. So again, by speaking to people, you get a breadth of understanding around different types of roles that there are in the industry as well.
And you've got the next Reframe Women in Tech event coming up in London this September, first time down south. What can people expect to hear about from the event?
So Reframe is all about creating conferences, professional and personal development, accessible to all. So back in 2019, we wanted to make the conference, it's non-for-profit and truly accessible. So we keep ticket prices all-time low. We provide free childcare to every attendee on the day. And it's all around making sure we're talking about the amazing role models and topics that may not get talked about in the other sort of expos, conferences. So we always listen to our community from the conference before. So Manchester this year, we were talking a lot about how people go to Women in Tech events, and I see it a lot, you see a lot of nodding heads, we need to do this, and everybody's nodding the head in the audience, and then the moment they walk out, what actually happens from that point. And I think we need to be more accountable for actions, not words. So the whole theme around London is actions, not words. So we're focusing on themes, talking about, not focusing on the goal, talking about the journey. We're focusing on the power of vulnerability and talking about money. Money's not really talked about from a women in tech perspective. And also the powerful topics of mentorship and allies. So back in Manchester, I called it out. Our conference is inclusive to everybody, but we had no male applications for speakers. So I made the very brave decision on International Women's Day to say that I wanted our closing keynote to be a male ally. I did get a lot of backlash for it, but I'm glad I stuck to my guns, because we had an amazing male ally talk very openly and vulnerable about his journey as being a male ally and the importance of it. And I think it's a conversation that we need to carry on. And I'm sure you find it yourself in terms of, in your network, the importance of, supporting women in the amazing work that you're doing. And you're a true, male ally in that respect. And I think we definitely need more within that, because we don't need to sit in an echo chamber. If we need to really make movement, we need everybody included in that conversation, and I think that's something that we really need to sort of champion.
Am I right in thinking that there's a couple of spaces available for people to speak if they might be interested?
There is. We have our main sort of stage conference speakers for the morning, but we do something which is called the community empowerment stage. So where people may find the first time speaking is a bit daunting in front of, say, 400 or 500 people, the community empowerment is a smaller stage, 5-minute talks, and we really want to support the next generation of speakers at conferences. So if you have got a desire to try it out, we're very supportive. We support you all the way through in terms of helping you build your talk. You might want to practice with us, and then you have the opportunity to then then deliver that talk to a smaller stage audience.
Brilliant, and we'll link the information for the Reframe Women in Tech event in the description for anybody that might be interested. But we really appreciate your time in speaking with us. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, thank you so much for get involved, and I think it's great that communities like this can really talk about the different types of initiatives that are happening, because I think it aligning all together is going to be really creating that sort of powerful movement.
I completely agree, and it is also a rewarding kind of thing to be doing and seeing the impacts that you can make within it. So thanks again for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.